What an election it's been in the United States, full of thrills and chills, even for some people. This is, after all, the land of Hollywood. So, Joe Biden has finally won after several days of counting and potentially even recounting in some states going ahead. But what does this mean for the world, and what does this mean for India? Now, for India, I think this is a great result. There are a few obvious reasons. Trade and immigration, for instance. India has had a lot of trouble with Donald Trump in the last 4 years on issues of trade and immigration, fighting at the World Trade Organization, H-1B visas getting more restricted, Indian software companies and firms losing out. Joe Biden is actually going to reverse all of this, in my view. He's going to revert at least to a more predictable policy approach and policy course, uh, being more liberal even on issues of immigration, because the Democratic Party, in many ways, has invested itself more in America's diversity and openness in this election. So that is the more obvious good news. There is other good news, I think, in that in foreign policy issues, we're going to see a lot more predictability from the new American administration. Donald Trump was very given to acting on a whim. He would suddenly pull out of alliance obligations. He would suddenly pull out of treaties like the Paris Climate Deal. Joe Biden has already promised to rejoin some of these deals, especially the Paris Climate Deal. And this, I think, is very good news for India in particular, because India is one of those countries which requires cooperation from the United States on climate change, which is, to us, a very important problem. Hundreds of thousands of farmers commit suicide every year because of climate change and floods and droughts and erratic monsoon and all of those things. And Donald Trump had actually reversed a lot of the green energy policies of the United States after pulling out of the Paris Climate Deal. So I think now we're going to see Joe Biden actually rejoining this deal, and we're going to see Joe Biden come back to a more scientific approach to climate change, so to speak. There are also other things that are going to be probably be done on foreign policy by Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden might actually rejoin the Iran nuclear deal, in my view. This is, after all, his deal. It was under the Obama administration, of which he was the vice president, that this deal was signed. So I think that he is likely to rejoin. Why does this matter to India? India, again, had some troubles with Donald Trump on the Iran issue. We do not see eye to eye with the United States on the Iran issue. There's no reason for India to, levy sanctions on Iran for its nuclear program, because we have ourselves not signed on to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which very rightly India considers to be an extremely unequal treaty. At any rate, there was no basis of violation of that nuclear deal by Iran. It was a unilateral decision taken by Donald Trump, and I think that Joe Biden is going to reverse that. And this should come as good news to India. There is no longer a need to do this balancing act on this Iran nuclear issue vis-a-vis Washington. Finally, China. Now, a lot of people are very afraid in India that Joe Biden is going to be soft on China. But let me tell you this: Donald Trump was not tough on China. Donald Trump actually ceded space for China at the United Nations and in other multilateral forums by actually withdrawing American power, presence, and influence. So look at the UN, for instance. In the UN now, China is the second largest contributor to the UN budget, as much as 12%, according to estimates. Donald Trump was actually pulling America in the opposite direction. He quit the WHO. He cut funding to the WHO. Before that, he cut funding to the UN Population Fund. He cut funding to the UN Fund on HIV/AIDS. All of these things. And as a result, what was happening was that China was actually increasing its influence and clout, and it was gaining a larger share in global decision making. And India and China do not see eye to eye on a lot of issues in global governance. Clearly, Chinese influence in Asia and around the world, India has now decided is not really in its interest. And seeing America come back to a more proactive role in multilateral organizations, this is very good news for India. Now, finally, the big thing that a lot of people in India seem to be worried about: will Joe Biden speak out on human rights issues in India, such as the Citizenship Amendment Act and the Kashmir curfew and other things? So this is a tricky question to answer. Joe Biden, to be honest, is coming into the White House with a somewhat divided mandate within his own party. There is the centrist third way, somewhat more moderate approach, which Joe Biden represents. And then there is the more younger progressive wing of the Democratic Party, which is represented by people like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. Now, Kamala Harris is not necessarily a full blown progressive of the Democratic Party, but she's certainly a lot more progressive on a number of these issues than Joe Biden is. So I think the progressive wing of the Democratic Party will expect to express itself through Kamala Harris within this administration. And they are very keen that America actually asserts itself more on liberal progressive values in its foreign policy because Donald Trump had very categorically refused to do that. So, this is one of the planks upon which the Democratic Party wanted to defeat Donald Trump. So, I think we can expect that there are going to be congressmen and congresswomen and Democratic politicians that will hold some clout and influence over this administration, and they will want to see this administration speak out on human rights issues around the world. Now, whether that happens in the case of India is yet to be seen, but in the past year, we've already seen a number of Democratic politicians, especially Indian American politicians like Pramila Jayapal, like Ami Bera, even Kamala Harris herself, have criticized the Indian government on a number of these issues. So there you have it. It's very difficult to say where this is going to go, but I think that overall, this is very good news for India.